You're live?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the work session today, Monday, September 8th. It is 1 p.m. I, as you can tell, am Mayor Pro Tem Bencomo. We will start with a brief moment of silence for the brave women and men of the Las Cruces Police Department and the Las Cruces Fire Department as they keep our city safe 24/7, 365. Please join me in the pledge. Thank you, everyone. We will start off with Jobs of the Week. Sarah Rainey.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Rainey. I'm the one-stop coordinator for the Southwest region of America's Job Center, New Mexico. For the Jobs of the Week, we have a public health coordinator for the city of Las Cruces, starting at $69,000, and it is a continuous posting at this time. We also have an engineer for the city. That one also starts at the same amount and is a continuous posting at this time. They're needing individuals in those positions, so they will stay open until they find the right person. For Doñana County, we have a planner designer for community development starting at $52,000 a year, and that posting closes on the 17th of September. We have an administrative assistant in economic development for the county starting at $18.24 an hour, and the posting closes on the 12th, so really, really soon. For Stampede Meat, there's multiple positions. This is just a portion of what they have out there. Everything from wastewater, trimmers, steak cutter, packer, maintenance tech, food quality control tech. There was administrative, all sorts of positions are open out there. And then for La Clínica de Familia, we have an ACT case manager for $22.22 an hour, and that position closes October 2nd. And then just as a reminder, this week we have the Career Essentials in Anthony. That's one-on-one employment help where you can go and get program referrals, assistance, anything you're needing for your job and career path. We have H&R Block recruitment in our office on 226 Alameda. You can come ready for an interview, bring your resume so you can apply for those positions. We also have upcoming this month the Community Hope Job Readiness mock interview event. We are looking for volunteers that want to come and help with the mock interviews, give feedback to those that are having their interviews done, and we can show you all of that in between. But if anybody's interested in volunteering, come see me. And then that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Next up is Carol with our Pets of the Week.
Good afternoon. I am Carol Nilsson, Digital Content Specialist with the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. To start our presentation off, our Dog of the Week, Ruby, has been adopted, so we're super excited for her and hoping she'll have success as she was paired up with a young couple, so they should have energy for her. Our Cat of the Week, Mississippi, 97552 to look her up on the website. I'm still fairly new to the center and have been feeling a bit shy since arriving, but my sweet nature still shines through. Once I shake off my initial shyness, you'll find me rubbing up against the glass and making adorable biscuits, eager to connect with the world around me. I might feel uncertain around people at times, but I'm already beginning to open up and embrace affection. A gentle and patient approach really helps me come out of my shell. In a loving home, I can continue to blossom into my sweet and confident self. And as always, we like to highlight our long-term residents to adopt and some other really good news. Both our two longest-term residents currently at the center, Boxer and Pickle, are actually going to rescue today. So after 253 days, they get to go on. But we do have Cosette, who has been with us 245 days, Cookies and Cream, 235 days. Both really good options for adoption. We'd love to see them get into a home sooner rather than later. so they can continue to thrive. And then this coming weekend, we are going to be at the farmers market here downtown from 9 to 12, so definitely come out and bark and browse with us. And for more information, feel free to visit our website, or you can also follow us on social media. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Carol. Today was a good news day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now on to our agenda items. Item 3.1 is the Community of Hope Alliance Agency updates, and I'll pass it over to Natalie.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Natalie Green for the record. So today, I will be giving a brief introduction, and then we'll have each of our agencies come up and give a brief presentation. Today, all the Alliance agencies are here, and that includes Casa de Peregrinos, Jardin de los Niños, Mesilla Valley Community Hope, Amador Health Center, and El Caldito Soup Kitchen. Just a little background on the Community of Hope campus. The city actually acquired the land in 1994 and built phase 1 in 1998 that housed the original Hacienda del Sol Emergency Family Shelter, the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope Day Shelter, St. Luke's Healthcare Clinic, and then El Caldito. Phase 2 was added in 2000, and that created the Jardin de los Niños building. And then in 2005, we created phase 3, which transitioned Mesilla Valley Community Hope Day Shelter into their current location and housed the former Casa de Peregrinos facility. In 2010, we added the Child Crisis Center that took over the old Hacienda del Sol family shelter, and then it closed in 2013 and became part of Amador Health Center's facility. In 2011, we incorporated Camp Hope, which is the safe outdoor space encampment, and then that was formalized through a PUD in 2013. And then in 2022, we adopted the master plan for all of the patterned growth that occurs at the campus. And then in 2023, we opened the new Casa de Peregrinos facility. And then just recently, we acquired the Mano a Mano warehouse and then some additional parking area to support the overall campus. It's about 17 acres, so this is the campus. It's 2 separate parcels, so we have the main campus, 9999 West Amador, and then we have 1101 West Amador, which is the future home of Amador Crossing Housing Complex. And then on the campus, but not a part of the campus, is 12th Avenue, or El Crucero, which is owned and operated by FYI Plus. The campus is quite a busy campus, so it sees about 1,000 people a day accessing services, whether that's healthcare, meal services, pantry services, residing at Camp Hope, or utilizing some of the day shelter services like laundries, showers. So we just wanted to give you an aerial shot of the campus. In terms of the campus, I just wanted to show this graphic. So the Community of Hope campus is the city-owned facility. So the city owns all 17 acres. We own the buildings. We lease that to the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope, the organization. So Community Hope, the campus, Mesilla Valley Community Hope, the organization, as the master leasee, and then they sublease to the other alliance agencies, again, which includes Amador, Casa, El Caldito, and Jardin. Each organization is independently operated. They have their own directors, which you'll get to meet today, and they have their own boards. So I will let Mesilla Valley Community Hope come up first, and then all the agencies will present, and then we can answer questions at the end.
Thanks, Natalie. I love you all sitting right here perfectly in this section. Don't forget to state your name.
Okay, my name is Carol Apodaca. I am the Deputy Director for Mesilla Valley Community of Hope. Nicole was kind enough to land herself in a hospital bed today, just so I could come check in with the people with whom and for I used to work. So thanks to Nicole. We'll get started here. Okay. Since 1998, Community of Hope has provided services for people in need of shelter, case management, income support. We did start as a day shelter. We have expanded services based on community needs. Last year, we served 10,894 people. Of that, just a quick breakdown, we did serve 582 vets. Average time to housing for vets was 26 days, so it's a statistic we're pretty proud of. That number also includes people who are at camp, so Camp Hope. It includes Seuss House, Abode. It includes our scattered site vouchers, our outreach team, the Mano a Mano Day Labor Program, our assisted outpatient treatment partnerships. So it's made up by a ton of different programs that we offer. Last year, Camp Hope sheltered 194 people. Generally speaking, on average, we have about 175 people sign in at the front desk each day. So that would be for showers, laundry, rental assistance. They're checking in maybe their status for camp, or they are campers. And we served 1,118 new people with housing. That was in large part thanks to the Grow Money and Fresh Start. Overall, we served 1,857 people and 1,004 children for housing assistance specifically last year. So just a note that includes kind of the entire housing continuum. So that could be 1 month of rent that they're behind, or other arrearages, including utility arrearages. It includes homeless prevention. So while we served that entire continuum, it's important to note that the biggest solution to ending homelessness is housing. And so we'll talk a little bit about access issues. Quick note on the Grow Money. That was primarily geared for homeless prevention. We do anticipate that there will be federal cuts coming, unfortunately, and if so, just kind of want to put it out there that will be primarily where we're asking for assistance in the future. Mano a Mano, the outreach team, and housing services have demonstrated impactful solutions during the post-COVID period. So people are struggling in the community. It's important to note that outside corporations bought out hundreds of units in Las Cruces and really impacted access to housing. So we are always looking for opportunities for housing and services with both the county and the city of Las Cruces. So these are things like Amador Crossing. We work with the county to do services for people who are exiting incarceration. We're looking also at expanding those services particularly. We did serve 1,339 unique people just in Mano a Mano last year. We are still operating Camp Hope. It's related really to the improvements. So we're working right now on the expansion renovation, new flooring, new showers. We did do the Mano a Mano warehouse project. We got money for solar. So we're working really hard to protect the assets that have been entrusted to us by the city of Las Cruces. Camp Hope was designed by the city staff planning department, has stamped and engineer designs improved by the community improvement department. The goal of Camp Hope is really a very brief shelter stay while they're working on transitioning to other housing opportunities. And just to note that congressional dollars did help us with these improvements here. We work really hard to improve the campus to the best of our ability. We do have a few outstanding work orders, but we're trying hard to be very communicative if there are issues that pop up and that need the city's attention. This is a slide that really talks about kind of the housing continuum. So we have prevention solutions. These are things like diverting people from exiting into homelessness. Working with clients and landlords to prevent an eviction. Then you move into the crisis response portion. That is things like emergency shelters. We have a safe outdoor space, that's Camp Hope, that allows clients to maintain their eligibility for some of the more permanent, stable housing options while being in a safe place. This is also street outreach, coordinated assessment, which is if somebody comes in and they're homeless, it's how we prioritize and determine eligibility for programming. So unfortunately, as you, I'm sure know, dollars are limited and need is high. So we have to have a way of determining who enters into which program. And this is a federal program that we use. There are also opportunities like safe parking, motel vouchers, and then you move into stable housing, which is things like rapid rehousing, which is geared to get clients into housing within 30 days. Permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, these are things like rental assistance. So this is not like a one-time rental assistance. This is like TBRA monies that are intended to be for slightly longer term. Motel conversions are also an option here. And then you move into things like being able to maintain your own affordable rental housing or home ownership. So just to quick highlight, the darker blue are things that are offered by Community of Hope. Sorry, because that key is a little hard to read. The pink are offered by other nonprofits in Las Cruces. And then the light blue are the ones where we're potentially, there's an opportunity or that we just don't have access to that here. So we do always work with landlords to try to divert evictions as much as possible. We also work with landlords to pay, like I said, one-time assistance and arrearages to prevent people exiting to homelessness. In terms of crisis response, we do have that Camp Hope, that's the safe outdoor space. There are other agencies in town that will do some emergency shelters. As you guys know, we partner with you on street outreach. The coordinated assessment is run by us. Again, that's the VI spit out that I just spoke about. Safe parking is probably, I would say, underutilized. We allow it sometimes in specific instances, but we don't have a specific program for that. So it's marked as still a missing potential opportunity here. Motel vouchers we offer, but they are in extremely limited circumstances. Like, I want to highlight how limited those circumstances are. And there are other nonprofits who also offer them, but it would be like, we're opening them up for a day and they fill them the same day. So those get really used really very quickly. So we left it open to note that it is a potential opportunity. In the future, this may be something that we bring to council as a potential option if we start looking at places where there's high need. That potentially will be one that we come forward with. In terms of stable housing, we do rapid rehousing and we do permanent supportive housing. Those are, there's a couple of different programs, but they do receive federal monies. Transitional housing, we do, again, in super specific instances. I will just note federal dollars have pulled away from transitional housing and have invested very heavily into the rapid rehousing portion. Other agencies also will do some transitional housing, but these would be things like temporary housing during your recovery, for example. Rental assistance is something that we offer, again, with the TBRA would be an example, and other agencies in town do as well. Motel conversions, we have not done. I will note that we are monitoring motel conversions in other places. We are not, at this time, coming forward with any kind of proposals to do that, but it is something that we're watching very closely, seeing how it's handled in other areas. Affordable rental housing, we partner with agencies as often as we can to make that a reality for the missing middle as well. And then home ownership is something that's done by other agencies in town. It is not something that we partner with at this time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carriel. And I would just say, write down your questions, and then we'll come back to questions at the end for everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Adames, and I'm so happy to be here. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for inviting us to be able to share, and city councilors. I think it's important for us to be able to share. I always love when you come visit us at Jardin because we're able to give you a tour, and it just looks so different when you're able to actually see everything that's going on. So even after this, I welcome everyone to come to our center so that you can actually visit and see what's going on daily at Jardin. Like I mentioned, I'm Michelle Adames, and I'm the CEO at Jardin de los Niños, and I've actually been at Jardin for 7 years now. And in the 7 years, we've seen quite a bit of growth. A lot has happened just in the last 3 years. So I'll start by just sharing that Jardin still remains a 5-star early childhood education center. We've been operating at this level since 2016. Within our early childhood education department, we have our children's services, and those services are strictly for supporting the children on site. And so we serve children from the ages of 6 weeks to 10 years. And within our Children's Therapeutic Services program, these are the children who are often referred to us for, many are because of CPS. CPS will refer children to us, many because of developmental delays, many because they might be transitioning in foster care. The public schools might have families that they receive, and then they refer the younger siblings to us. And then we may also just have families who come to us by way of other nonprofit organizations. I will say that when families land on our campus, the most wonderful thing about us working and operating as a campus is that regardless of where they land, whichever organization they first walk into, they are immediately referred to us so that we can help support. And that's really important because the families are able to adjust and they're able to get the support they need immediately without having to go anywhere off campus. We do we have benefited from CDBG funding to help support a portion of our Children's Therapeutic Services program. And this program also looks at supporting children's developmental milestones. So when a child is experiencing developmental delays, we want to make sure that we can address those early on so that they can actually matriculate into kindergarten at the same level as their peers. So we do focus on those developmental milestones and social emotional learning. We also provide an early pre-K and pre-K program. These programs serve 3- and 4-year-old children. And the goal is to provide quality early childhood education services to prepare them for kindergarten. And then our school age program serves children who are in kindergarten through 5th grade. We serve them in an after-school setting throughout this academic year, and then it turns into a summer program, and that's full 5 days from 7:30 a.m. to about 5 p.m. So I do want to share that on an average, we have served about 350 families annually. And at our Las Cruces site, we're able to adjust accordingly based on our 5-star ratios. Our families might actually be, they might actually range between 3 to 10 family members. So when you think about how many individuals we're serving, the number it grows exponentially. But as far as families, we look at enrolling families as a whole so that we can stabilize the whole family, not just, our infants and toddlers and then try to figure out where all the older kiddos go. We don't want the families to have to be chasing the children around Las Cruces Public Schools. So that's the biggest reason why we look at the whole family makeup. So one of the things that I always like to share is that when a family is unable to be served in our child care or early childhood services, it's because we've reached capacity. And we have remained at capacity for about 3 to 4 years now. And especially in our 0 to 3 program, so our infants, mobile infants, toddlers, there's a huge need. So one example I can share with you, and this need has been addressed as we looked at the master plan. We have 31 children on our wait list right now. So when you think about what that looks like, these children unfortunately cannot receive the child care services, but we do have them on our wait list where we're still serving them with all the wraparound family services. And so Jardin is actually the first and only designated trauma-informed care center in the state of New Mexico. We take a lot of pride in this designation because there's a lot that goes into becoming a designated center, the training, the ongoing professional development, and all of the services that we provide are trauma-informed. With that, when we have a family who cannot be served on the child care side, we still keep them on our wait list. We provide case management, mentoring, connections to community resources, referrals to community partners, employment and career coaching, support to access services. So for example, one of the things that we do a lot, we share a lot of our expertise in, is our family services team will often help support a family to be able to access child care subsidies. We receive them as though we are going to serve them, which we are through our wraparound services. And as soon as we can help them find a spot at another child care center, then we help to transition them so that parents can start working or going to school. And this is a service that isn't available anywhere else, but we do a lot of that outreach because we want to make sure that families can stabilize. And we know that without childcare, parents cannot go to work or they cannot, go to school. We provide transportation, so we'll pick up the children and we'll take them wherever they need to go. At the end of the day, we pick them up wherever they are. In our anti-hunger and wellness program, we do address food insecurity. We provide dental, vision, and hearing screenings, wellness checks, immunizations, and parent education workshops. We utilize our community partners that are on the Community of Hope campus. Amador Health Center has sent over their providers. They do screenings, they do the wellness checks. Everything can be done on site, which is so good for us because parents sometimes say, well, maybe I'll take them to the doctor, right? And we want to make sure that they have those follow-up visits. We also have our Flourishing Families Parent Mentoring Program. We've graduated 4 cohorts at this point. We're getting ready to launch our 5th cohort. And this one is the program where we know families have stabilized and they're ready to graduate, they're ready to move on, and they're ready to essentially do all the things that they need to do so that their family can be stable. I want to share that about 20% of our families are designated as homeless. They're either living at the shelter, they might be living out of the hotels, they might be living out of their vehicles at times, they might be transitioning throughout Doña Ana County, really, because we do have our Hatch site that we expanded to in 2024, and often our families might go to seek services from both sites. The other 80% are near homeless. And the biggest challenge is that, when we're looking at breaking the cycle of generational poverty, they're living in multi-generation homes, or there isn't access to housing for them, so they're maybe just living with friends and other families. In 2025, Jardin grew even further, and we became a designated behavioral health agency. This is really important because we can actually now provide all of the outpatient services, the comprehensive community support services, and of course, we're providing all of the social emotional learning in the classroom setting. This has been something that, for us, we've worked so hard over the last couple of years, and now we have the ability to not only serve our families that are enrolled, but we can serve other community partners and their families as well. And then our community outreach and voucher program. So we have approximately 45 partners that we can say we work very closely with in Doña Ana County and across New Mexico annually. And these are partners that we have many collaborations with. We have collaborations, projects that are research-based projects. We have projects that provide, support to families, whether it's resources. We have collaborations where we're looking for additional funding. Our voucher program at La Tienda, it serves clients and community partners to provide business attire to prepare for job interviews, education presentations, court hearings, etc. And so the way that program works is that we often get referrals from community partners, and we probably average about 30 referrals a month. So when you look at these referrals, they're coming from, about 50% of those referrals are received from local nonprofits, 20% are received from LCPS, NMSU, DACC. Then we have approximately 5% are civic religious organizations. We also have the DA's office. We have a great partnership with the DA's office, so when a family is needing to gain business attire, so that they can attend a court hearing. They'll come to La Tienda so they can receive those services. And then the other 20% are our clients. Our adoptive family and back to school campaigns really focus around the onboarding of families and the maintenance of families throughout the year, because we enroll families monthly. We disenroll families monthly. And the snapshot, we have periods throughout the year that, we follow an academic year, but, it just depending on the situation. Sometimes when we get a referral, say from the DA's office, it may just be for 4 weeks that we're supporting that family, and then they have to leave so that they're placed into foster care or whatever it is that's happening with that family. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, good afternoon. My name is Ron Fitzherbert. I am the CEO of Amador Health Center. Excuse me. Amador Health Center was originally known as St. Luke's Healthcare Clinic, and from 1990 to 2017 operated under that name. And as an original resident of the Community of Hope campus since 1998, and we have been providing services to the underserved in our community in conjunction with the other agencies on the campus since the campus started. Our mission is to promote dignity and provide access to vital health and wellness services. And we do that without discrimination. We provide to anyone in need, regardless of their race, religion, origin, gender, identity, whether they have insurance or not, their income. It's whoever walks in our door that needs a service, we will provide those to them. In 2015, we became designated as a federally qualified health center, the third in Las Cruces, with a specific purpose, a large part of our purpose to support those who are unhoused and underserved. Thank you. I'm sorry, I've been fighting an allergy all week. So our primary focus is the underserved, but we serve anyone in need. Our core services are primary medical care, behavioral health care, substance use disorder treatment services, and an on-site pharmacy. So far this year, or the first 6 months of this year, we have served 1,059 patients in total. 277 of those had addresses on or adjacent to the Community of Hope campus. 340 of the patients received behavioral health care services. And of those 1,059 patients, there was almost 4,000 total visits that we have done in the first 6 months of the year. And 600 of those visits had a substance use disorder treatment component. We also have mobile people, mobile units, sometimes providers, sometimes nurses, sometimes case managers that do street outreach and go through the community to different encampment locations and try to find people who need services and direct them to our clinic on the campus. In the first 6 months of this year, we have provided care totaling nearly 250,000 that we were not compensated for directly by insurance to uninsured patients. Yes, and I don't like talking to screens. Sorry. So we are HRSA funded, so we are compensated in that way through our care for the people without insurance, but we do not receive insurance reimbursements for the uninsured, obviously. We also currently have a congressionally directed spending grant for renovating Suite D of Building 3 on the campus that will allow us to expand that building, add additional counseling offices, which will allow us to provide service to more clients. And one of the things we really like about being on the campus, as has been mentioned previously, is the integration with the other agencies on campus. Everyone is right there. They're right next door to each other. You know, you don't have to send someone on a bus or figure out how to get them across town. You just walk them across the parking lot and take them to the other services they need, which provides, you know, benefit to the patients. It provides benefit to the agencies. It saves, you know, time, energy. It gets people to where they need to go. And it's much better if you walk them there and, you know, do a warm handoff. You know they made it. You know they've been, you know, connected to that service. And what we do for the community also is by providing these services in the medical and behavioral health and et cetera, is hopefully intervene on people who don't have insurance not ending up in the emergency room, not ending up sick on the street, not ending up infecting other people, because we provide the vaccinations. And, you know, so we are there to, you know, be that, you know, provider of last resort to make sure people receive what they need, when they need, where they need it. You know, and looking forward, which I will push the button this time, or if it will actually go. We did actually restart dental services last week, or dental hygiene services last week in conjunction with Doñana Community College. We had started them up with them right before COVID, and then COVID happened and we got out of doing dental. We did do a renovation last year to add to the facility, which included a dedicated dental suite. This partnership with DAC is the first step to providing full dental at our location. Hopefully by the end of the year, we will be doing, still with DACC, doing that part, but doing dental on our own the other days. We have also been expanding our substance use and behavioral health services through expansion grants from HRSA, and like I mentioned, the CDS grant that is expanding the facility. This year, starting July 1st, we've also received a number of state grants, specifically housing linked, particularly crisis housing for people with severe mental illness or substance use disorder issues. So we're working on getting people in crisis housing, emergency housing, or permanently housed as we can as part of their treatment plan. And, you know, so far this year, with nearly 4,000 visits in the first 6 months, we're, you know, definitely seeing a lot of patients. So that's all I have, and I will be here for questions at the end.
Thank you. Mr. Chavira.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, Mr. City Manager. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to be here today. It is an honor for me to get together with my group, our brethren here from the campus, from the Community of Hope, because we all believe that what we do is certainly vital work for our community, and it's an honor to be able to serve our community every single day in providing this work. We are El Caldito Soup Kitchen. We are, as the mission states, we continue every day to follow our mission by feeding people. The ongoing support enables us to expand our reach and impact, knowing that no one in our community goes hungry. We have been open since 1984. That's 41 years. In that time, we have served in excess of 3.5 million meals. We have an extremely dynamic board of directors and an army of volunteers, along with a very dedicated but small regular staff every day that does all the work. Everything that we do, as you'll hear today, all that goes on in this campus, our basic mission is just feeding people. We bring in food, we cultivate volunteers, we make sure that our clients come through the doors and walk out the doors with a full belly and enough to sustain themselves and get them ready for the next day. And with all the services that go on our campus, we know that there's plenty of opportunity for them to make sure they're getting what they need. We really appreciate our arrangement that we have with the City of Las Cruces and all that we've done. With our arrangement, looking at the last fiscal year, our investment from the City of Las Cruces basically was $32,000. On that arrangement and that service agreement, we were projected units to be served was 95,000. We actually served 159,490 meals during that course of that year. You know, basic, as I said. Our expenditures, according to budget, were $546,734, and the cost per meal served based on the projections was $5.75 per meal. Actually, our actual unit cost per meal is $3.43. In 2026, we look forward to our budget projects $519,000 and a $33,250 contribution from the city of Las Cruces, with those projected units served according to agreement of 75,000. And we expect to hit at least 145,000, but definitely more than that, as we expect. I've been there for about a year now. Actually, I'll say I've been here for 53 weeks, and it's been an honor to be here during that time. During that time, it's been an eye-opening experience for me to learn what we do, how we do it, who helps us to do it, and what we need to do to get more. My goal has been really just for those people that don't know what El Caldito is, to put us on their map. For those people that have an idea of what El Caldito is, to help us clarify exactly what that means, and to put ourselves in a position as we move forward to put ourselves in an even better position to increase our reach and to be able to help and serve more people than we currently serve. I'm honored to say that the board, with the support of the board and our strategic plan and the dynamic staff that we have, we are on track to get a lot of good things done. In the end of this year, we will be launching our first, one of our first fundraising events. It's the Super Dash 5K. It's a 5K 1 mile fun run, and it's going to be happening at December 6th at the Mesilla Plaza. And I'm honored to say that we've already gotten GECU Foundation as our title sponsor for that. Cultivating sponsorship and volunteers and things for that event. We are excited. That's going to be a great day. We also, as you know, and I apologize that it's not on the list, but our annual Empty Bowls event will be happening in October 17th. And I look forward to seeing you all down there, as I did last year for my first time with the agency. But Empty Bowls certainly is already gearing up to be a nice, strong event. We've increased the number of restaurants who are going to be providing food and services for that day, increased the number of volunteers who are going to be helping us execute, and through the Potters Guild, they've increased the number of ceramic bowls that are going to be available for sale that day. There's a lot of good things that will be happening on that day at St. Paul's United Methodist Church. We are projecting planning a tote bag project that we are putting together with Alma de Arte to get the schools to provide some artwork, food-related artwork for some bags that we'll be getting out there that will help make money for us and for the students as well in a big way. We also want to introduce to you a program that we've put together, which is called Operation Giving Apron. Now, I can tell you how much food we get. I can tell you how many clients we're going to serve. I can tell you a lot of the things that go through our process sort of pre-planned. The thing I cannot tell you is exactly how many volunteers I'm going to have every single day. And that's the challenge that we have. So I've launched a program called Operation Giving Apron, which is a program that allows us to provide corporate partnership with the local business community, where in your particular business, when you have your community service guidelines that you need to meet in the community over the course of a year, all of your employees through a staggered period of time can come in and volunteer with the kitchen. We get 5 employees on Monday, 5 employees on Wednesday, 8 employees on the 3rd Tuesday of the month, you name it, whatever will work within your guidelines. But it's a prescribed, pre-planned volunteerism effort, which allows us to be able to tell, I've got 8 extra volunteers on that day. I've got XYZ business that is coming in, and it's being very well received by the business community in town. And I look forward to having you see more. Our first real participant that we have will be coming this Wednesday, Molina Healthcare. We'll have people coming in from all over the state to see what we do, not just what, how they can volunteer, but how they can take projects like this and take them into their own communities and thereby serve the most vulnerable people in the community. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I look forward to standing for questions at the appropriate time, but I encourage every single one of you to come visit us at El Caldito Soup Kitchen. Lunch is on me.
Thank you so much. Congrats on almost 1 year.
Thank you.
And last, but certainly not least, is Casa de Peregrinos, Mr. Alba.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and our wonderful City Manager, Ikani. It's great to be with you guys, and with these folks here, obviously. I want to start off first by letting you know that our motto at CDP has always been food for today, hope for tomorrow. One, because we feel very good about giving people nutritious food. And I think what it does is it elevates the idea of hope in their lives and helps them to get the rest of their life going just by having food on their table. The growth that we have seen over the last few years has just been exponential. We've served 28,000 unique underprivileged individuals through the food security programs in 2025. That's an 18% increase over the previous years. We never turn anyone away. We are seeing the number of baskets increase at the same rate and are providing more food to each client every day. The amount of food we put out increased from 4.1 million in 2023 to 7.4 million this past year. It's not only an increase in the need, but it's the fact that we have a state-of-the-art facility that we can distribute food out of. We also believe that the timing of this presentation is absolutely impeccable. Given the current situation on SNAP cuts, Medicaid cuts that are happening because of the federal budget, is absolutely, these services are going to be essential for families in our community. The food security program generates a return on investment of over 12 to 1. This is one of the wisest investments you've ever made as a city. Absolutely crucial for the families here in Las Cruces. It costs $20 to put a basket of food together for a family. It's a value of about $240, according to the USDA's data that they have us use. You know, they have this data that they haven't changed over the years, but when we have our partners from like Walmart or Albertsons talk to us, they're telling us that every basket's worth is probably about $500, because they haven't taken into account, the fact that we're still got a lot of economic issues that are going on here in our community. So the return on investment for the food rescue program, which is funded by the CDBG grant, is even higher. Every dollar invested in food rescue, CDP is able to generate over $20 worth of food. It's a great return on investment on that one for sure. The human return, this is the part that you want to hear, because this is that human element that my colleagues were talking about. Consistent, reliable access to supplemental nutritious groceries provides financial stability, health benefits, and peace of mind to the families that we serve. A recent client survey conducted under the supervision of UNM School of Public Policy showed that as a result of receiving a cart of food from CDP each month, 58% of the families report that they have more financial security and are more able to save money and pay their bills. 60% of the families report that they are missing fewer meals. Families have more peace of mind. Over 99% of the clients indicated that they were worried about food. But 89% indicated that having a cart of food from CDP each month allowed them to worry less. There's some peace of mind when you have food on the table for your family. When you're able to feed your kids, feed the viejitos that are there at home with you, and take care of them, it changes everything. This is where basic need really begins. It begins with a meal. We don't receive any federal funding for our operations whatsoever. But these cuts are going to have a massive implication on the people that we serve. 1 in 4 families in Doña Ana County receive SNAP. Medicaid cuts will also be something more for them to worry about. That's almost all of our clients. It's going to make it a little difficult for them when they got to choose between paying their medical bills or going to buy food, going to pick up their meds, paying their electric bill, paying their city bill. It's going to be a little bit tougher as time goes by with these cuts. We've already seen it happen already. I don't know if it's out of fear that people are coming to see us or they're planning for the future, but the lines are longer every day. Just come by. Or if you don't want to stop by, just drive by early in the morning and see what's happening. It's getting more and more difficult for all of us. Our missions are moving forward, but it's more difficult to operate them. One of our clients recently told me, if we lose our SNAP and Medicaid benefits, I will not know what to do. I have an adult disabled son in our home, and I'm the only one working. What will we do? We need to keep our doors open. We need to make sure that we are serving these people and moving forward and not taking any steps backwards. That's my biggest fear, is to take a step backward when we've been moving forward for the last 15, 20 years. And we can't do this without you. You've always been there for us. This facility, this campus, the things that we do collectively on the campus is all the fruits of what the city shares with us in responsibility as we serve this community. I would like to formally ask today for you to fund us an additional $100,000 so that we can keep our doors open and keep moving forward with this mission. As you saw in some of the slides before, the city is funding about 6% of our missions in the programs that they serve. There was 1 year in 2023 when we were operating out of 2 facilities that you did give us $100,000, and that upped it to about 20% of that budget for that program. It would do something similar. It would be 22% if you did add that $100,000. I think this would help our mission, and I'm going to keep pushing. One of these days, I'm going to get you guys to make us a line item, because I think that's an important thing to do. It could happen under you, sir. That would be an incredible thing. Our mission is pretty simple. It's how we do it that's difficult. It's how we get there that's difficult. We've been doing this collectively with this community for many, many years. This is our 46th year in operation. You've been helping us since 1985. I don't think you were the mayor back then, Councilor Matisse, but but that's how long you've been helping us, and I think that's such an incredible thing. This campus is the fruits of what this city has. We align perfectly with what's going on with your programs for quality of life. Lift up Las Cruces. Realize it's all happening. We align perfectly. I think everybody on this campus really tries to do that. We strive to do that. We have those conversations at our board meetings. Does this align with what they're doing? Does this align with the things that we're trying to accomplish within the community? I can tell you that collectively we do, and I think that this campus deserves, one, a good lease. Let's get that lease going so that we can all rest easy on that. And I do want to thank you because I know that you put some money in the budget this year for the campus, including a maintenance person. We'd like to see that maintenance person sooner than later. I think those are important things for all of us collectively. And now we stand for questions. All of us were very excited about this, but this building that you see in this picture, it's working. Everything that we told you it was going to do, it's doing that and more. We're getting food into the community, not just by people standing in line, coming to our lobby or to our state-of-the-art drive-up pantry, but also to delivery programs that some of your teams help us get food out. The fire department, emergency services, the police department, CYFD, APS, and other agencies in the community that help us get food out there. The 7.4 million is not us by ourselves. It is a collective effort between everybody that's in this fight for hunger. So thank you so much. On behalf of us at Casa de Peregrinos, we're grateful for everything that you do for us. Our board of directors thanks you. Our staff thanks you. Our volunteers thank you. And especially those people that we serve, we thank you dearly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Good afternoon again, Natalie Green for the record. Lorenzo gave me a great segue into the next slide, which is to talk about the lease a little bit. The current lease for the Mesilla Valley Community Hope campus ends at the end of the year. A new lease is currently under development. There is a rent amount assigned to the lease. The current rent value is about $568,000. The new value is still under review by our Economic Development Department. They should be getting that to us within the next couple weeks. As part of the lease agreement, in exchange for not charging the agency's rent, they do have to provide services in lieu, and those services must meet or exceed that rent value, that $568. As you can see, last year they provided over $3.4 million worth of services. And then for the first 2 quarters of 2025, they're at $2.3 million. So they're going to far exceed any rent expectations. The new lease will require that any services or programming on the campus conform with the master plan. Major changes that you'll see in that lease is there is a request to start anticipating some of those annual maintenance budgets, especially now that we have a maintenance person that will be starting full-time at the campus. That way they can address some of those issues timely. We are asking that the lease be 5-year terms with up to 4 renewals. That's really mostly for grants purposes. So a lot of times when they get congressional directed spending or capital outlay, the state or the feds need to see that long-term investment in the campus. So having that option for 20+ years lets them get those major capital grants. This is just an aerial of the master plan. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's the phases that they were built. So this current facility, again, houses Amador Health, and El Caldito is sandwiched in between Amador Health on both sides, Jardin de los Niños, the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope, which is now expanding into the former Casa de Peregrinos, the current Casa de Peregrinos, and then soon to come is the kitchens, which our hope is to transition El Caldito out of their current building. That'll give opportunity for expansion in both behavioral services and substance use services through Amador Health. Amador Crossing will be coming on board, and then after El Caldito and the kitchens are done, our goal is to create some sort of daycare housing model. So Jardin Crossing number 2 or something. I don't know. I'll have to think of a good name for that future site. And then in terms of projects in progress at the campus, Jardin is getting their new roof, so it's almost complete. Design for the kitchens is underway, and they're working to demolish the older building. The renovations at the former CDP are under construction and moving forward. Solar panels are about to be installed in Casa de Peregrinos, and then this year we received capital outlay for a potential Hawk system. I'm also short $100,000, but I'll ask for that later. And so that'll help some of those pedestrian safety improvements on the campus. Just general campus needs, I'm not saying they're today, but long-term needs that we're sort of planning for is mainly in the master plan. There are a need for restroom repairs. As you can imagine, those restrooms get heavily used by members of the public every day. And so some of those buildings need some replacements. There is a roof that's needed for phase 3, which is the current Community of Hope building. We did identify as part of the fire inspection this year some fire and safety improvements to phase 2, which is Jardin's building. It's been 20 plus years since it's been constructed, and so some of those could use some improvement. The heating and cooling systems, they received some partial replacements, but there are some improvements to be made there. The parking lot also needs some work, so some paving, striping, general beautification. But again, we'll continue to ask for that as part of our master plan, CIP, and capital outlay requests. We are exploring an emergency exit driveway just to have that third. We have 2 driveways now, but we do need a third one should emergencies occur on the Amador side, that there's ways staff can get in and out of the campus off of Valley. And then future way down the line is a potential renovation and acquisition of the 12th Avenue or El Crucero transitional housing. I'm trying to figure out how that facility can integrate with the new daycare and the new, hopefully, family housing that can go on that campus. With that, myself and all the agencies will stand for questions, whether it's about agency operations, the campus, or the lease.
Thank you, Natalie, and thanks to all of you. I know you're incredibly busy people, so we appreciate you being here to present and to just talk to us. So thank you. I'll open it up for questions now. Wow, no one has questions? Yes, no. Oh, no, now. Wow, okay. That's wild, that's never happens. I have questions, which always happens. But if you, yes, please go.
I mean, not so much of I guess it's a question to all, and obviously not one that needs to be raised today or addressed today, but as we face these devastating federal cuts and as our community is going to find itself in more need than ever, obviously I'm hoping that state is going to step in, but that's, again, that's just a hope. So we've had some allusions to upcoming needs or gap needs. I guess I'm just want to be sure that we're going to be in communication consistently for how we best keep everyone afloat during an unprecedentedly terrible time for federal funding. Natalie, if you want to speak to that in general, that would be great. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Graham, we will be working closely with our staff person, Christine, assigned to legislative priorities. We did see the announcement for the special session, which will address some of those cuts. Of course, we'll continue to be advocates at the state level for some of those fundings and meeting the need. So we'll just monitor and then be as proactive as we can through our lobbying and efforts in Santa Fe. So,
thank you. Great question. Thank you. Okay. I will go if no one else. Councilor Corn? Okay. First of all, I want to say that it's, the entire campus, Community of Hope, is in the heart of District 4, but of course it's citywide, right? Like you provide services not just citywide, but countywide. But I do have to say that anyone who is lucky enough to represent the area where you all are, this campus, it should be a requirement that they be an advocate and an extension of your PR team. And I tried to do that as much as possible and just talk you up wherever possible. And frankly, I think all of us should be doing that because you make magic happen every single day with the resources that you have. When I think about people truly doing salt of the earth work, it is all of you on that campus. So it just, I know often the burden and the criticisms are heavy, and so I just want to take a brief moment to say that we see you and that we need you, and thank you. I do have a question, and I hate to do this because it's kind of for each of you, and maybe, I don't know, maybe Natalie, you can answer it so that they don't each individually have to come up, but the reason I ask this question is because I think there is often really big misconceptions about the organizations on the Community of Hope campus being sort of an extension of the city, that their budgets are all City of Las Cruces, and I think that's not true, right? I know that each of you have incredibly diverse budgets, and I am wondering about what percentage of your budgets come from the City of Las Cruces. If you have that information, if you don't, that's okay. But I think Lorenzo, Lorenzo said 22%, unless I...
Generally, it's less than 10% for each of them.
For each of them. So each of the 4 organizations, their entire budgets individually, less than 10%, you rely on any city funding.
The most consistent funding source we have for them is our health-related public service program, and that's about 30,000, sometimes less, sometimes more. One year it was 28, one year is 27, this year it's 33. We do have another funding source that we do work with some of the agencies. It's our Community Development Block Grant program, but only, it can't be for any duplication of existing programming, so it has to fund a very separate project. And so even adding that in, it's still below the 10%.
Okay, thank you for, yes, Lorenzo, come on up. Yes, please come on up here.
Like for this year, we're slated to receive about 42, 43,000, maybe 45,000 from you. And our budget is $1.9 million. So that should put some perspective on everybody's respective budgets on how we operate.
Yeah.
We do a lot of grant writing. We have a grant team, and we write hundreds of grants every year to try to see how we can try to make ends meet. And individual donors for us are our biggest asset. Mm-hmm. There's families that have been donating to Casa de Peregrinos since its inception. We have some donors that have been generationally donating, families. They just keep up, you know. Mom and dad started donating in the 1970s, and all of a sudden they're still donating. The grandkids are still donating to us. So that's the majority of where the funding comes from. And yeah, there is a big misconception about even the people that we serve. Our campus serves everybody. It's not, it's in a very specific area of town, and I think everybody has that misconception. But for Casa de Peregrinos, most of the people that we serve are low-income families. Yeah. It's not just the unhoused. The unhoused are part of the people we serve. You know, everybody. We're here for everybody, as my colleague Steve Chavita said. We're here for everybody.
Thank you, Lorenzo. I just wanted to underscore that piece that I do think it's important for us to publicly talk about, given the sometimes the stories that get spun. And so thank you all for being incredibly healthy organizations and nonprofits. I just have one more question. And then Natalie, on the lease, I'm curious if you're evaluating the rent value. If the rent value increases, will the services in lieu amount also increase?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes. So if the rent value increases, the agencies are responsible for ensuring their services in lieu are at least that dollar amount.
Okay, thank you.
And that's to comply with the anti-donation
right.
clause of the Constitution. So,
thank you, Natalie. Okay, that was my last question. Please go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you all for presenting, and I appreciate all the work you do. I particularly have a soft heart for Jardin de los Niños. But my question I'm almost afraid to ask. Should there be cuts in federal cuts, which have been definitely, they're underway? Do you have any alternative funding, or are you anticipating any cuts from the federal government?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, many of the agencies do receive federal funds, and so I'm sure they're monitoring those as closely as we are. We do have our Federal Impact Committee here at the city, and we're tracking those. This last session for FY26, we did think that much of the housing program, which was going to get cut, which would have immediately made well over 1,000 families homeless. So we are tracking that very closely. FY26, thankfully, the Senate was able to fund most of the housing programs. There's still some back and forth on reconciliation. Amador Health does get Medicaid reimbursement. They do have some HRSA funding, which is federally funded. Still have SAMHSA? No SAMHSA, but they have HRSA. Casa de Peregrinos is definitely impacted by some of the federal cuts. As we see people in our community where their benefits get cut, they pursue other avenues to get food. We've seen a lot of cuts to like Feeding America, which trickles down to a lot of our lower pantries. And then, who did I miss? El Caldito, no federal funds, but what they rely a lot is through donations of food and gleaning from some of our grocery stores. So when we see less food in our grocery stores, then they have less to work with when they're trying to feed some of our community members.
Is there any funding from foundations such as Gates, the Gates Foundation? Because I think a lot of wonderful organizations that we have here, represented here today, are going to be impacted. That's, just preparing for that final, slap in the face to humanity. So is there any funding from private organizations, or?
I'll defer to our nonprofits. I do believe some of them do get foundation funding from different areas, and it funds other pieces of their operations. But I will give a shout out to the city. Our funding is some of the most flexible funding and covers some of the things that other grants typically wouldn't, and that lets them be able to broaden their service profile.
Thank
But
you.
do you think,
Michelle,
Ms. Green?
I think Michelle wants to add
great.
to you,
Okay.
to that.
Michelle Adames for the record. So in 2020, fiscal year 25, Jardin had approximately 15% of our funding was federal funds. In this current fiscal year, we are only relying on maybe 5% because we know we cannot, well, we really can't rely on federal funds. But what I do know is about 100% of our families are going to be impacted by their SNAP benefits, Medicaid. As a behavioral health agency, the biggest perk to becoming a behavioral health agency is being able to bill Medicaid. As an organization, we're still moving forward with our current model, which is going after funding to support the services through foundations. And so that's one of the other things about, I think, the agencies on the campus is that we are very resourceful. We go after funding, even just our roof project. Going after the funding just to fund that project was important, and we did have all the support from Natalie and her team, and all of you supported us. But writing those grants, to be able to get some of that funding, that takes, the time and effort from our organizations. And the other challenge is that we are all relying on foundations right now. So foundations are having to get really creative and trying to figure out how they can make the biggest impact. And so something that they might have funded about a year ago that was like a startup project or some seed money, they may not be as interested in doing because right now we're all in crisis, just trying to fill the gaps where that federal funding is being cut. But, you know, after meeting with one of my leadership team members and seeing the numbers, 100% of our families will be impacted. We'll see the SNAP and the Medicaid hit them. So if that gives a good representation, I think it's hard to plan at this point because we don't know what we're able to plan for. There's really no, I don't think any of us are planning further than a month out, maybe 3 months at best.
So it's a case of hope for the best and expect the worst.
Mm-hmm.
But
And then leveraging our funds, trying to work in collaboration with other organizations and with all of our partners to see how we can access funding together, because we're more likely to be able to receive that funding if we go in as a collaborative.
great. Thank you so much, Ms. Adames, for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Green. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Councilor Matisse.
if I may. I just want to ask, maybe I can get some type of report, because I know we have two powerful senators, and I know Martin Heinrich. What can we do as a collaborative effort as a city council to have our senators, because I remember you brought up about being a mayor, and I can remember asking Pete Domenici and Bingaman quite a lot of money for Community Hope in 2003, 4, 5, 6, and they came through with millions of dollars. It would be good to see what kind of report the senators have been earmarking for the Community Hope in the last 10 years, because we have this new thing about the administration, but both of them have been there very long. And so maybe as a collaborative effort, we could get together with both senators and tell them the need that we have, because it's quite obvious you're all doing a great job, and I support you all, but the city of Las Cruces can come up with hundreds of thousands, but only those senators can come up with millions. So maybe we could work together as a team and go after the millions and buy a lot of lotto tickets as well.
Thanks.
But thank you, if that could be done.
Thanks, Councilor Matisse. I can answer a little bit of that as well. The city of Las Cruces has 2 federal lobbyists, and they were here last month. Hopefully everyone got a chance to meet with them and express the needs that we have for our city. I think just to be honest and to have a real clear picture of the federal landscape, our 2 senators are 2 Democratic senators, which are in the minority of both the Senate and Congress. And so I think they can do as much as they can, and not always can go very far. So I think our federal lobbyists will be here again if you want to meet with them.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our federal lobbyist does have a standing meeting with the alliance agencies together as a group, so they do share those priorities with those legislators. I'm also happy to report that Senator Ben Ray Lujan was here 3 weeks ago, and so he was able to tour Casa de Peregrinos, see the construction of Amador Crossing, and then have a roundtable with food providers. And then I'll see if Lorenzo wants to add everything. We have also had Senator Heinrich. He's done roundtables at Mesilla Valley Community Hope, so they're very active with the organizations. And they did fund quite a bit of congressional directed spending. The challenge is that the continuing resolutions swiped almost all of those funding requests. And so there's a couple that moved forward that we're watching in FY26, but the big ones did not pass Senate appropriations. So there's some additional advocacy and work that we could be doing collaboratively.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Matisse, I just want to add also that especially Ben Ray Lujan, he's really made a concerted effort to stay in touch with us about everything that's going on the campus and with Casa de Peregrinos. Senator Heinrich's office on a local level is always in communication with us about what's going on. We do make visits out there to Washington also and ask him and let him know what's going on, not only within our organizations, but also on the campus and in our community, so that they know what the basic need is and what the needs of our community is via whether it's operational dollars or infrastructure dollars, what we're working with the city on and what we're working with the county on. We inform them very well. This is an annual trip for some of us, and this year we were very blessed. We had a couple of folks from economic development in the city go, and it did pay dividends because we were able to get Ben Ray Lujan to commit $8 million for the kitchens. And as Mayor Pro Tem stated, it didn't make it across the finish line. As Natalie stated, it also didn't make it across the finish line. But that's the second year that he's tried to do that. I also serve on the Farm Bill Committee for Senator Ben Ray Lujan and for Congressman Gabe Vasquez. So just try to also keep him also from the grassroots level knowing what's going on here. We do make those efforts, and we're not going to give up asking them for money because you're right. The city can only do so much. And as I told Ben Ray Lujan when his visit here, the only way to get anything done is going to be on a federal level. The city can help us as much as they can. The county can help us as much as it can. The state might be able to help for a few years, but for it to be an ongoing thing, it has to be done on a federal level. And I think both of our current senators are willing to work across the aisle, and that's something that they've been trying to do, and I've been staying in touch with them about that. And it's worked to some points, but not in all of them. But I think the fact that they're making the efforts is really important for us to all note. So I'm pretty happy about that they're actually making those efforts. So thank you.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Yes, the July report that our federal lobbyist provided has a great graph on the earmarks, the millions of dollars in earmark requests we've made for fire department, police department, Mesilla Valley Community of Hope, many things. So yeah, come on up. And state your name for the record, please. Thank you. You used to work here, you know how it goes.
You should know. Carol Apodaca for the record. I just want to add that we do write our own grants to the senators every year, and both Senators Heinrich and Lujan have given us millions of dollars. They've committed those to our renovation. They helped us with the solar panels. We also got some battery banks for those solar panels from the senators. Additionally, they have given a substantial amount of money to Amador Crossing, which is obviously a partnership. So just wanted to add from our perspective that they have given pretty generously in the past, and we do write to them.
Thank you.
Good afternoon once again. Steve Chavita for the record. And about Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Matisse, I liked your question, and that was a great question. And Lorenzo talked about the advocacy trip that we went to DC on, and yeah, we got in front of some great people, got some great conversations that happened. And the key though, as we talk about our supporters, as we talk about the people who advocate for us at the grassroots level, there's a lot of things that have to happen from the top on down, but the key also is that advocacy that you can do. You all speak glowingly about the community of hope and things that go on, and we love that. But you all know people that we don't know. You all know people who are have the influence that through your efforts you can help take that message out. Remember that hunger does not recognize a single holiday. Hunger does not recognize a political party, but hunger is prevalent everywhere you go. Not all of my clients have mental issues or drug issues, but every single one of my clients is hungry. So when we're talking about the issues that are at hand, we need to be all advocates for this community and for our efforts that we're trying to put out there. Because, and I'll use ourselves as an example, and I praise the work that Lorenzo and Dr. Adames have done by extending their reach out there. I can only serve the people who come to my campus. But if I get more money, if I get more advocacy, if I get more capacity to increase, I can take food to people. I can serve more people. There are many people in this community who don't come to the community of hope that are hungry, that need help, and we've got to get to them. So it's all about advocacy, and it's all about you all using your influence with the people you know who will take your cell phone call, but not answer their cell phone call when I call. But we work together to meet the demand. So thank you for that question, sir.
Thank you. I think as we wrap up, I do just want to note that Lorenzo said it best. This is a timely conversation to be having. The New Mexico State Legislature will be meeting for a special session on October 1st to discuss many of these things, and we sort of keep skirting around it, and I know our nonprofits will not say anything political ever because they follow the law, but me as an elected official can, and so I will. I do want to note that the big betrayal bill passed by Republican-held Congress and Trump will have a serious impact on New Mexicans. Medicaid currently provides health care coverage in New Mexico to 350,453 children, 70,790 older adults, and 11,346 disabled individuals. In New Mexico alone, 88,530 residents are estimated to lose Medicaid coverage, which will impact the rest of the choices that they have to make. The impossible choices they already have to make will become even harder. SNAP cuts, roughly 58,180 New Mexicans may lose or see reduced SNAP benefits. In Doña Ana County, that is 15,708 households. And so the urgency of the moment could not be more serious. And more than ever, we have to work together with the Community of Hope folks. So thank you again for being here and for the work that you do. And thank you, Natalie, for leading this conversation and for reminding us that we do have a internal federal impact team really taking stock of everything that's happening. So thank you so much. Okay, we will move forward. And on that note, the very depressing note, we will move on to item 3.2. And we will have our 8th semi-annual police audit report presented by the OIR group. And we will have Viola introduce our 2 guests.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors. My name is Viola Perea, City Auditor, and today we have the OIR group with us to present, as you mentioned, the 8th semi-annual audit report for Las Cruces Police Department. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. It's going to be Teresa Magula and Stephen Connolly.
Welcome back.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm Stephen Connolly of OIR Group. I'm here with my colleague Teresa Magula. As Ms. Perea was telling you, Teresa is really the brains of the operation and our lead here in Las Cruces, but she lets me do a few slides at the beginning just to make sure my edges stay sharp. So we will be hearing from her soon, I promise. So we have been here in Las Cruces for 5+ years now. So obviously we have a larger span of time and a larger sample size for some of the things that we've looked at and the trends that we talk about. Just to take a big step back, OIR Group is a independent police practices team. We operate out of Southern California, and we do a lot of our work in California, but we actually have jurisdictions in several other states that we work with and have worked with over the years. And we try to bring our familiarity with best practices and some of the ways different places do things to see if there's any applicability in any ways that we can enhance the internal review systems for the different agencies that we work with. So this is our 5th year of coming to the council to give these semi-annual presentations, and as the Mayor Pro Tem said, it's our 8th report. So in terms of the content area that we're going to be talking about today, consistent with our scope of work, we're going to be discussing cases, internal affairs cases, allegations of misconduct cases that were investigated and closed by the department and reviewed by us in the period starting on January 1st and running through the mid-year point of the year. And our job is simple. The cases are completed by the time they come to us, but our role is to review them in a very thorough way. We get access to all of the investigative materials, the body-worn camera, the reports, the investigative interviews. We get access to everything that the department has put together in order to make its decisions. And our job is to evaluate all of those materials to make sure that the cases, as the slide said, were investigated in a complete, objective, and thorough way, and that the department's responses in terms of the outcomes of the case and any consequences were appropriate to the circumstances. And we also provide a report, again, consistent with the scope of work on some of the demographics, both the officers who are involved in the cases that we're looking at, and also, if that information is available, some of the demographic information for the complainants. In terms of the cases that we looked at this time around, we had 8 internal investigations, and that distinction is actually an important one. Obviously, there are a couple different ways that an internal affairs investigation can get open. One is when it's a complaint from a member of the public, and those are the external cases, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. But the vast majority of the cases that we looked at this time were generated by the department itself. So one of the key issues when it comes to public skepticism, public concern about police misconduct is whether police agencies are genuinely interested in holding their people accountable. And certainly one way to look at that is through how are external complaints handled. And obviously if you're a complainant, you get a particular perspective on the legitimacy of that process. But it's important to point out that a lot of the cases, a lot of the misconduct allegations that we reviewed, and as you can see, 80% of the cases that we looked at this time were started by the department management itself. They were the ones who said, look, based on our review and our internal process for monitoring and supervising our folks, we have 8 different situations where we feel like we're concerned enough about potential policy violations that we're going to take the initiative and open the cases ourselves. Significantly, 2 of them involved officer-involved shootings. Those are routinely going to be evaluated by us in terms of the department's administrative investigation process. Teresa will be talking about those in just a minute. Another use of force case that became an internal affairs investigation. And this one was kind of significant insofar as the force itself was actually not very extreme. There were no injuries involved in it at all, but during the department's review process for every use of force, there were some concerns that were identified to the point where it was sent over to the force review cadre, which is a relatively new development that Chief Story has sort of championed and that we're big supporters of, and Teresa will be talking about that a little bit as well. That force review cadre is made up of experts in the department, policy, training, defensive tactics, all of the relevant things related to force. They flagged some concerns based on their review, again, of this relatively low-level force incident, brought it to internal affairs, and an investigation was conducted. So to us, that was an example of the system working actually very well to make sure, again, that people are held appropriately accountable and that department standards are being met. A couple of internal administrative issues. These were ones that didn't involve members of the public, contact with members of the public, but allegations of misconduct by people in a work-related setting. And again, those became subjects of investigation. And there was one case involving shortcomings in an investigation, a criminal case that first the complainant raised some concerns, and then the department looked into it and realized that the scope of the concerns was even larger, and so they went ahead and expanded it and made it into an internal, they opened an internal investigation about the whole thing. As for the 2 external cases this time around, these were citizen complaints that rose to the level of seriousness that they were sent to us as part of our scope of work. Both of them also involved issues that the complainants had with the way their investigations, they reported to the police concerns and didn't feel like the department members had handled them as effectively or appropriately as they had wished. So the department looked at those and identified, certainly investigated the substance of the complaints that were made, but also looked at the ancillary issues that they identified. Once they start in on something, they're going to look at every aspect of the officer's handling of it, and if there are additional issues that the complainant hasn't even raised, but that are concerns to the department for policy or performance-related issues, they will go ahead and include that as part of the investigation as well. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, and certainly we look forward, as always, to any questions that you folks might have.
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, Teresa Magula. I am the numbers lady, as you all know. I love my numbers, so I'll throw a few at you. We had 40 total allegations in this 10-case span. Why more allegations than number of cases? Because cases can have more than one allegation. So it depends on the policy, a line item that the department feels may have been violated, they can frame the allegation accordingly. In the past, we mentioned that there was some struggle internally with either over-framing allegations, too many, too much detail, and then missing some. And so we really found in this period that the department has balanced that out. They've done a great job in correcting that and finding kind of the right balance as far as allegations are concerned. 32 of those were sustained. That's a big percentage. And one might raise an eyebrow as to, well, why are so many sustained? In part, it's what Steve was speaking to earlier. The large percentage of cases were initiated internally, right? So the department almost has a head start in knowing that this thing is going to be an issue. This is a matter that has risen to the level of us identifying and investigating at an internal affairs level. And so most likely those things will be sustained in the course of the investigation. It doesn't necessarily indicate that there is more problematic behavior than before if these are sustained versus exonerated or not sustained. It's simply the nature of the types of cases that are being opened by the department. We looked at 20 employees of the Las Cruces Police Department. 14 of those were officers, 2 were detectives, and I have that asterisk there. 2 cases involved the same detective. Steve is going to talk a little bit about why that's significant in the course of progressive discipline later. 2 of them were sergeants and 2 were non-sworn employees. And we had, of course, our disciplinary outcomes. They ranged from verbal reprimand to suspension to termination. We did have one officer who resigned prior to completion of the investigation, and the department followed through, finished the investigation, made findings, and provided kind of the completion of that case, which is something that not all departments choose to do. Some, as the individual resigns, will cease the investigation in lieu of resignation, or in lieu of findings, and Las Cruces has decided it is important to follow through and make those findings and ultimately come to an outcome in those cases. And all of these cases, except for that one, resulted in debrief or a training, irrespective of the findings. So even if there was a finding that no misconduct occurred, the department is taking that extra step to say, hey, here's what happened, here's how it was perceived, here is the investigation, and providing that debrief to the personnel who are involved. The complaint demographics has been a bit of a sticking point for us since the start of our engagement. The complaints themselves, it's important to note, make up a very, very small percentage of the total activity of your police department here. So in this same period, January to June, there was 68,045 calls for service. And of that, we had 2, maybe 3 that involved members of the public that were complaining about the behavior of a particular officer on those calls for service. So it's too small a percentage to even put up here on the board. And the sample size that we're talking about remains fairly limited for us. And so across the 5 years that we've been doing this, we have the demographic information for 62 complainants. Even with that sample size, which some might go, well, that's fairly significant, it's not enough to come to any kind of pattern or finding related to disparate policing in your city. So we still have not, to this date, found any kind of implication that there is a disproportionate amount of policing occurring or a disproportionate amount of misconduct occurring in the police department along the lines of race or zip code, which are the 2 areas that we've been tasked to look at. And we can understand that that statement, hearing that statement over and over again, can feel very unsatisfactory. Are we doing enough? Are we digging deep enough? Are we doing sufficient statistical analysis? Why aren't we coming up with some sort of answer for you all? In particular, something that was raised in our community listening sessions. And really, it's important to acknowledge here that quantifying the bias of a police department is extremely difficult. It's something that we are bumping up against in California in particular. There's a specific legislation that requires police departments to collect information on every single contact that they have with an individual. That's become kind of a basis for police departments trying to identify any bias or disproportionality. And even in places where the numbers themselves, statistically speaking, show a disproportionate amount of contact with a specific race or ethnicity, the explanations around those are varied and unsatisfactory. So we're bumping up against this in California regularly, and we're really trying to find kind of the right balance to get to some form of answer that's satisfying. But as we stand now here in your city in Las Cruces, we just simply don't have enough of a pool of a sample to be able to come to any conclusion there. One thing we always like to report on is how LCPD is implementing our recommendations. They have reduced investigative timelines. Chief Story has hired now, I believe for 2 years he's been with you, legal advisor. Legal advisor that's helping to support in some of these more critical matters, provide guidance to the department. There is, as Steve mentioned, that referral of cases to the force review cadre, something that's become a lot more robust since that has started, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And generally, we're seeing that there are timely and appropriate outcomes to each of these cases. I say generally because we saw a few discrepancies, which Steve will dive into, with respect to the disciplinary outcomes and how that's happening over time. One area that we have not previously reported to you on, simply because of the nature of the timeline, have been critical incidents. And I want to preface both of these slides with saying that these critical incidents cannot be reduced to a slide. So these critical incidents are extraordinarily large. They are complex matters. They involve real human beings, both on the police and the community side. These are real families who are being impacted. And so I hesitated even to put a summary on each of the slides because these are a big deal. But given the nature of our presentation, I wanted to refresh memories on what these each were involving, but with the understanding that our memos related to each of these have the detail. They have the case summaries. And so I urge anyone who's feeling unsatisfied with me reducing it to a sentence to please take a look at those full case memos. We had 2022 II-006. You'll note the date on that is 2022, and we are currently in 2025. So what is one of the major challenges? It is that it took 3 years to complete this investigation. In this particular case, LCPD chose to defer their administrative investigation. That's the side of the house that is inside the police department, until all the related matters, including litigation, were complete, and then they began the admin. That process obviously took quite some time, in particular the settling of civil litigation. And so what we have urged, and the department has turned to do now, is to run those concurrently and to not have that long delay, and you'll see that in the next case. What was positive about this is that almost immediately after the incident occurred, the department had an internal debrief. These are non-disciplinary in nature, and what they're looking for are any training, equipment, tactical concerns, things that they can identify on kind of the global scale, systemic scale, that don't involve the individual officer's performance or conduct. And it's important to note, too, that we reviewed that closed litigation even before the IA was closed, and we presented that to you in a prior period. The second critical incident is 2023 II-017. This was an October 2023 fatal officer-involved shooting that was associated with an encounter near a public housing complex. What we noted in this case was that there was a need for an immediate administrative presence. The department responds in tandem with the officer-involved task force, and the officer-involved task force deals with the criminal side of the investigation, whereas the department looks at the administrative side of the investigation. And in this case, while LCPD personnel responded, there was some delay in having that administrative side of the house start to address some of the challenges. We also noted there were challenges with the on-scene management. Most notably, the officer who was involved moved key pieces of evidence from one spot to the next, had a rationale for doing so in his mindset, A supervisor intervened rather quickly, but certainly it's an opportunity to remind LCPD personnel of the need for crime scene preservation, especially in a critical incident. And they fairly short order issued a training bulletin related to that concept. Here, in this particular case, LCPD took a very proactive approach. So unlike the first, in which they waited for kind of the findings from the criminal side, the department proceeded with charges before the criminal side was completed or the DA letter was issued, and they completed the administrative investigation in July of 2024. Why are you hearing about it today and not in July of 24? The protocol that we have with the city and that we've established through our contract requires that we wait for litigation to close before we report out on cases. And so that is the delay, is that the civil litigation related to that just recently closed. So as I mentioned, with critical incidents, the department has agreed to the extent possible and practicable to conduct those concurrent investigations. That's reducing the time that's taking from one incident, from the completion of one case to the beginning of a next. They're going to happen in parallel. That's a practice that's happening in departments nationwide as we're seeing these wanting to be streamlined, public wanting more information quickly, departments wanting this to be handled and managed in a more efficient manner. And we'll see that in the next period. We'll bring a case to you in which that happened, and you'll see how quickly that investigative timeline occurs. We also noted that IA personnel should be responding to the scenes, and that's part of the department's protocol. And again, that the department is doing those non-disciplinary debriefs within weeks to identify training, equipment, and tactical needs. The process can work perfectly. It can work smoothly. The timeline can be shorter than anyone ever dreamed it could be, and it still can have unsatisfactory results for members of the public. And so I have great empathy for that as people are waiting to hear what is happening, what's going on, and it feels like it's a very opaque process. To his credit, Chief Story has town hall meetings on a quarterly basis, more press conferences than I think I've seen in chiefs in any of the jurisdictions where I work, to be able to provide that information as much as possible to members of the public. So we give kudos to that, even though that timeline feels very protracted. And I will end with talking about the force review cadre. This is, as Steve mentioned, a team of subject matter experts that reviews force. It is something that we have seen develop over the course of our tenure. When we started, they were looking really at like the moment of force and the use of force almost exclusively. That was appropriate, but we worked with the department, and Chief Story has expanded that scope to look at some early issue spotting, referrals to IA, to look at incidents more holistically as well. What about de-escalation? What was attempted? What about the duty to intercede if there were other officers on the scene? What about supervision? How did they do there? And so that force review is expanded to become a much more holistic view of an incident from start to finish. It's something that we are really gratified to see. One thing that we recommended was that the force review cadre look at more instances, more incidents. And unfortunately, as you could expect, the individuals who staff this cadre are very high level. They are in very high demand. They have a lot of ancillary duties and kind of operational commitments. And so we see that the department is trying to use them judiciously. And so we're trying to come up with some kind of framework that would work so that their involvement becomes more predictable. And we see their work kind of flourish in the department. Back to Steve.
So we have just a few more slides to kind of sum up some of the broader themes that we looked at in this particular review period. There were a few different cases involving allegations of investigative or enforcement errors. We had 3 in this cycle, and then we've already taken a look at 2 or 3 from the current cycle that we're reporting on now. It was a little concerning to us. Again, the cases were different in a lot of ways, but the issue of crime victims or reporting parties being concerned or dissatisfied with the effectiveness of the department's handling of something, it's obviously a pretty sensitive thing. So we have looked at it carefully. The department's assessment of each case individually, we consider to be very appropriate. We'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of progressive discipline and monitoring it, certainly taking these concerns seriously. And we've also kind of, again, taken a step back to say collectively, is this reflective of a larger concern that deserves some additional attention outside of the context of these individual matters? And at this point, the answer to that question is no. We haven't found any kind of unifying theme or trend, so it's something that we'll continue to keep an eye on, and we'll report out again in our next visit early next year. And again, as the slide says, we certainly were satisfied with the extent to which department management took these matters seriously and addressed them appropriately. In terms of corrective action, training and counseling accompany each case. I think that's an important thing to mention, and it's something that we have pushed for, and I think the department has done a better job with it. There's the result of the case and any obviously specific consequence in terms of possibly discipline for the officer. But then there's the larger issue of, if this is a performance shortcoming of some kind, is there anything other than the discipline process that would be beneficial to the officer? Because obviously, unless the person is being separated from the agency, which is very, very rare, the object of the process in a lot of ways is to correct behavior, make sure that the same mistakes aren't going to be happening again. So we always like to see it that the department will add a training component, address the specific issue the way that the officer fell short in a given case. And I think that is a constructive trend that has become more prevalent as time has gone by. We look at tracking on the individual case basis, but again, also holistically comparing case results to each other. That concept of progressive discipline, the second bullet near the bottom there, it's I think a really important part of the discipline process, which is to say, if this is a repeat offense, if you will, if an officer has been found to have engaged in the same problem for a second time or a third time, is the department adjusting its dials in terms of an appropriate response? And obviously a more significant response would potentially be warranted. And I think the answer to that question we have found to be yes. One of the things we've criticized the department a little bit about in the past is that you got the outcome of the case right. We would have liked to have seen a more significant consequence. Some of that is very subtle differences of opinion as opposed to major divergences. But we do think that the progressive discipline concept is important. And if you read the individual case reports closely, which I hope that you do, although I recognize that they're long reports by the time it all gets put together, one of the things that the city has asked us to do is to report out on the discipline history of any officer who was found to have sustained policy. And that speaks to this exact concept and the importance of saying, okay, if this is a repeated issue, are we doing something appropriate to address it and kind of ramp up the level of response? A couple of the cases that we looked at involved significant allegations of off-duty misconduct. As I'm sure all of you know, but just as a reminder to the public, the police officers, law enforcement officers are responsible for their behavior 24 hours a day in a way that other professions are obviously not. So there are some off-duty issues, off-duty misconduct that can absolutely have implications for employment. In this case, the two cases that involved off-duty misconduct resulted in those individual officers being separated from the department. So again, the individual case reports talk about that in more detail. Domestic incidents would obviously be a significant category of off-duty misconduct. These are handled through internal affairs, and the department, again, does a very appropriate job of addressing any of the internal aspects, but not only that, but making sure that any potential criminal implications of the officer conduct are also being addressed appropriately. And then one of the last things that we want to talk about today is a new trend in reporting. Teresa and I were talking earlier today about how artificial intelligence is absolutely taking over the world in a lot of ways, and certainly we're seeing more implications for it in law enforcement. Law enforcement has used AI in a lot of different ways over the years, for as long as there's been artificial intelligence. But one of the newest trends that we've seen is the use of AI software to assist officers in the preparation of police reports. And it can be a very useful tool, and those of you who have worked with AI and do writing yourselves and have kind of played around with it, you can see how very capable these systems are in a lot of ways. But we certainly have concerns. Police reports are obviously a special category of writing, and the authenticity of it and the individuality of the officer's own perceptions and observations and state of mind in a particular case, all those things matter a lot. And so we don't have a blanket concern or a blanket disapproval of the department's use of this new software. There are a lot of agencies that are experimenting with it. And as the slide says, there are important checks and balances that are built into the software to make sure it's not just the officers pressing a button and then walking away and not really taking any ownership of it. But it's something that we're going to continue to keep an eye on, and we've talked about it with the chief, and he certainly is aware of the potential issues and trying to balance the efficiency and effectiveness of it versus some of the concerns about individuality and legitimacy. So it's something to keep an eye on. Community outreach is the last part of our presentation today. Just to give people a reminder, we've done a couple of sessions, again, at the request of your council to reach out to the community. The first one was about a year ago, and the second one was in February of 2025. Both of them were very well attended. I will say we do this in a few different places, and we've gotten a better turnout and a more engaged public than we have in some other places, and that is certainly gratifying. And a lot of what we're there to do, certainly to answer specific questions about our work, but also, and maybe more importantly, to get feedback from community members in a direct way about their experiences of policing, the concerns that they have about policing priorities or the way enforcement is being handled here in Las Cruces. And it's again an opportunity to put our finger on the pulse of the neighborhoods and the people who actually live here in a way that obviously, given our own geography, we're not always able to do as much as we'd like. And along those lines, we are going to be meeting right here in council chambers from 6 to 8 p.m. The public is very cordially invited, and we hope to get a good turnout to that, and we'll certainly be sharing the results of that session at a future engagement with you folks. So that's all that we have by way of presentation, but again, as always, we welcome your questions and thank you for having us here.
Thank you both for that thorough presentation. Any questions? Wow, quiet group today. I actually only have one question that I was prepared to talk to you about, and I'm glad you noted it, about the use of AI. It's so interesting because after I read your report on it, I don't know, a few weeks later, there was a Time article about this very specific thing on police and courts. It's called "Police and Courts Are Turning to AI. Is the System Ready for It?" And it actually specifically names the system that LCPD uses as a concerning thing, and I sent it to both Chief and Ikani. And I guess I am wondering, though, given that it's here, right, like AI is here, people are using it. The article even talks about how it could be helpful in many instances. I am wondering if you all have any sort of standards or oversight mechanisms that we can begin considering that you could present. And you don't have to present today, but I guess I am wondering if that's something that you can get us, certainly our city manager, as the use of AI grows.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for that question. The evolution of it is moving almost faster than we can keep up with it. There are absolutely groups that are taking a look at the types of controls and guardrails that should and can be put into place to ensure that the AI is being used in an effective manner, and one that still aligns with the basics and the basic needs of the police documents that are being generated by AI. And so we can certainly report out on that in our next semi-annual. A lot of them are fluid, right? We're kind of building the plane mid-flight. And so we're really working for that. I think with respect to draft 1 in specific, some of the things that are coming out, both the manufacturer, Axon, is looking to see how it can implement internal checks and balances more effectively. For example, one of the very basic functions is that it will throw little Easter eggs into the report that it has generated, and it is expecting an officer to capture those in his or her review of the report. So it'll put something that's just completely nonsensical, and that officer should find it and delete it, and that indicates to some level that that officer is reviewing kind of the line level of that report. Another place that the checks and balances happen is at the supervisor level. So most often supervisors are reviewing those police reports. If that supervisor is seeing kind of a little too much consistency across these reports, AI has a tendency to do that. Keep in mind that it is transcribing off of body-worn camera footage, and so it's going to give you the same narrative if it sees the same thing, because it's going to use the path of least resistance. So if that supervisor is seeing that there's a little bit too much consistency, a little too much looking like cutting and pasting on AI's point of view, perhaps that supervisor can kick those back to give it a little more authenticity of the individual officer's experience in that incident. But yes, absolutely, we can report back on that. It's an issue that we are very mindful of, and there is a lot of software coming out. Kind of overnight, we're seeing new things coming out that law enforcement can use to its benefit, I'd say.
And the only thing I would add to that is I feel like I have to speak up as the old guy in the group. I've been doing this a long time. I started in this profession in 2001, and back then we absolutely were focused on report writing issues when we had the sense that officers were using a lot of boilerplate language and describing things in exactly the same way and talking about the subjects they were encountering, justifying force with particular phrases that didn't necessarily seem reflective of their specific and individual experience of an event, but really, literally could have been cut and paste if cut and paste was even invented way back then. I don't even know it. But I guess that's a long way of saying report writing issues are not new. This is fancy new technology for them, but the responsibility is always with the supervisors and the review process, and to make sure that the objectives of the report are being satisfied, whether it's through catching people who aren't reading the drafts carefully enough, or looking for boilerplate language or cut and paste language, or things that don't seem to be reflective of officers' actual experience of a specific event.
Thank you so much. I would appreciate that. That's really helpful as we look into all of this. I guess the earliest AI that I remember was a little paperclip on Microsoft Word, so I don't much more advanced, I guess. If there are no other further questions, I will open it up to public comment, since I recognize I failed to do that in the last agenda item. So are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you all so much for coming, and good luck this evening's meeting. If that is it, it's not if that is it, that is it. I will request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
This is on the motion to adjourn the work session. Councillor McClure?
Yes.
Councillor Matisse?
Yes.
Councillor Graham?
Yes.
Councillor Cran?
Yes.
Councillor Flores?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And the mayor is absent.